sure if I'm going to show it. I'm just looking at the clock, and sometimes less is more. But I'll explain it when we get there. And folks want to stay and look. It's a 13-minute clip. It might be a bit long. And then I'd like to say a few things about mutual aid, but also the social science, the social context in which we are living right now. And then we'll end with song as well. There's a great article, by the way, on Waging Nonviolence by Paul Engler on the importance of song in social movements. And the first sentence reads, "Social movements are stronger when they sing." And he says that one of the reasons we've gotten out of the habit of doing that, something that was heartbreaking to Vincent Harding, who was an aide to Martin Luther King, who kept saying, "Where's the song? Why isn't anyone singing?" is that in capitalism, we've been so, how would you say, almost forced to be passive consumers rather than active creators. And so I wanted to start our evening with a song, and also because, to my mind, it really speaks to the work of mutual aid, in the sense that we're not Elon Musk here or Jeff Bezos with these huge projects. We are to come down where we are to be. We come right round in our communities and thus live in the valley of love and delight. So let's see if we can get this to work.
Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in a place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to think we shan't be ashamed. To be our delight, till by turning we come round right. Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. When we all come down, we'll be in the valley. Be in a valley of love and delight. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift, 'tis a gift.
Beautiful. Okay, so I wanted us to really ground ourselves in this moment, maybe to do that discernment work of where we ought to be in this moment now. And so I'd like to do that through silent meditation. So if you want to just, do that physical act of grounding by, seating yourself, feet on the floor, strong back, gentle eyes, and just breathe. I'll ring the bell 3 times to start, and then once to finish. But really enjoy the gift of the breath. Enjoy our presence together in community. Enjoy this life. Well, good things come from that silence. So, as I mentioned, I am going to speak a lot about a book called Rehearsals for the Living. I'm using that book in my feminist theory class right now. And I'm thinking, however, that maybe I'll forego a video clip from it just in the interest of time. Sometimes less is more. It's already 6:20. If we have time and folks are interested in seeing it, we can see it. I can also send it to Terry and he can send it out to you. But I would really recommend this book. Robin D.G. Kelly writes the afterword. Robin Maynard is a Black Canadian, and Leanne Simpson is Indigenous Canadian. And it's incredibly powerful. Oops, I didn't want to do that. So let's go. Okay, so I'm just going to go right to the talk, and then at the end of it, we'll listen to another musical selection, and then hopefully, I'm more interested actually in having conversation with you, so let's get started. So in my feminist political theory class, I've asked my students to read Rehearsals for the Living. The book is epistolary in format, is profound, and challenges its readers to take a full measure of Grace Lee Boggs's question, what time is it on the clock of the world? I'd love to revisit that question at the end. What time is it at the clock of the world? And this book is just a series of letters that well, I'd say just, I mean, these are quite some letters, but they started writing to each other we're just right before the pandemic, and then they kept it up throughout the pandemic. In the first letter of the book, Robin writes, quote, at this moment, I'm preoccupied and filled with dread by the reports of rising temperatures, the just about last chances regularly announced by climate scientists, the continually shelved fact that things must be drastically and immediately shifted if we are to avoid untold suffering. I'm preoccupied with what goes unwritten in so many reports, but what I know in my bones. Some communities' untold suffering will vastly exceed that experienced by others. Some communities have been facing untold suffering for multiple generations. I don't want to live in this preoccupation, in this dread that sometimes comes to visit me and threatens to immobilize me. And I started there because that's perhaps something that we all share, in that experience of dread and immobilization in this moment now. When Maynard and Simpson write about those communities that have experienced untold suffering for multiple generations, they speak of communities that have been sacrificed in the name of slavery, colonialism, genocide, and capitalism. The social, political, and economic structures of slavery, colonialism, genocide, and capitalism are also the building blocks of catastrophic climate change and the ending of the world as we know it. They dismiss the cause of this catastrophe as anthropogenic because it relies on the universal referent of we, when we know very well that not all are responsible for this disaster. Perhaps we should refer to the plantation Ocene or the racial capital scene or the interminable catastrophe, they say. Because as Black and Indigenous communities have understood and insisted, the Industrial Revolution, which the IPCC regards as the moment when anthropogenic activities began to increase the world's carbon production massively, was not forged by humans in an even sense of the word. It was forged, in fact, by the violent ejection of the world's inhabitants from the conception of who is human. And for me, that grounding is the reason why we should move in the direction of mutual aid. As I say, violent exclusion must be met with radical hospitality in our world today. And we must get to the root of these social structures because they are so deeply ingrained in our societies and in us. Novelist Amitov Ghosh harkens back to the word of Cedric Robinson, a Black studies scholar and political scientist who said we must center a recognition and understanding of racial capitalism. The capitalism that developed in the 18th and 19th centuries was sustained by a structure constructed 2 centuries before, and which relied on slavery for its functioning. Ghosh, citing the work of Black scholars such as Robinson, succinctly says, "You don't get capitalism without slavery and colonialism." In Daisy Hilliard's gripping essay, War on the Air, Ecologies of Disasters, she presents a finding from Christina Sharp's work, In the Wake, on Blackness and Being, that floored me. In thinking about the answer to the question of what happened to the bodies of slaves who were thrown or who jumped overboard during the transatlantic slave trade, the answer is they are still here. To cite Hilliard and Sharp, the sodium of human blood would have a residence time of 260 million years, residence time meaning entering and leaving the ocean. In this very particular respect, the Atlantic carries a physical testament to the transatlantic slave trade in the present. It continues to cycle around the planet at scales too minute and dispersed to be detectable by the ordinary human body. If you have ever swum in the ocean at Lisbon or Atlantic City, Cape Town, Rio de Janeiro, Monrovia, La Rochelle, Paramaribo, or Galway, you've swum in this blood. Violent exclusion must be met with radical hospitality in our world today. Continuing in their exchange of letters, Maynard and Sampson draw from the work of the Italian theorist and revolutionary Antonio Gramsci, who discerned that we live in a time of monsters during that in-between time of an old world dying and a new world being born. The monsters, our world leaders and elites, are staking their final claims to the world on fire their predecessors have put into place, building up their riches on a tiny platform overlooking the ruins and surrounded by barricades as they wring every last bit of remaining life force out of the Earth's surface. And I think this is a good answer to the question that Grace Lee Boggs was asking. I was telling Terry, Umar Haque on Medium has a really chilling article on what we mean by this and by world's ending. Now, Maynard and Simpson go on to say, here's what is at stake. We do not want to get on the platform because what we would find behind those barricades would be nothing akin to freedom. The logic that requires the platform and the barricades and the high-rise offices funded by our dead is precisely the logic that got us into this calamity, and it will not, cannot lead us out. We are already living and organizing on entirely different terms than those laid out by the monsters, however imperfectly, and these terms have long-standing historical tradition. We are engaged, I believe, with asking one another, what does it mean to try to build worlds that affirm rather than destroy life, and to do so from outside the barricades? And that's their quote. One means of building a world that affirms life from outside the barricades is the work of mutual aid. Oh, there's the question. Dean Spade, in Mutual Aid, Building Solidarity During This Crisis and the Next, opens his book by describing the events of a world in existential crisis and states that in the face of these crises, more and more ordinary people are feeling called to respond in their communities, creating bold and innovative ways to share resources and support vulnerable neighbors. This survival work, when done in conjunction with social movements demanding transformational change, is called mutual aid. Okay, so that's a first definition. Our task at this moment is to organize to help people survive the devastating conditions unfolding every day and to mobilize hundreds of millions of people for resistance so we can tackle the underlying causes of these crises. And I think that one thing that got me thinking about mutual aid is just wondering what happens to people after these horrific fires and floods. And again, I come from more of an organizing background, so I had that side of it, but I was thinking like, what is going on here? What is apparent to those engaged in the work of mutual aid is that current social structures are not able to meet the needs of their people, but they're often the cause of the crisis in the first place. Though there is an emergent mutual aid literature and a renaissance of these efforts, the work of mutual aid is not new. We certainly saw it in operation during the Montgomery bus boycott, and we saw it centuries earlier. The term mutual aid was popularized by anarchist and philosopher Peter Kropotkin in his collection of essays, Mutual Aid, A Factor of Evolution. Kropotkin contended that mutually beneficial cooperation and reciprocity, both at the individual and species level, played a far more critical role in the animal kingdom than individualized competitive struggle. Indigenous scholar and activist Nick Estes, while speaking about the camps built during the resistance to the Dakota Access Pipeline at Standing Rock, clarifies that in contrast to the militarized world constructed to smash the camps and water protectors, and I'm quoting him now, in the camps themselves, you had sort of the primordial beginnings of what a world premised on indigenous justice might look like. And in that world, everyone got free food. There was a place for everyone. The housing was obviously transient housing and teepees and things like that. But then there were also health clinics to provide health care, alternative forms of healthcare to everyone. And so if we look to that, it's housing, education, all for free. Those are things that most poor communities in the US don't have access to, and especially reservation communities. But given the opportunity to create a new world in that camp, centered on indigenous justice and treaty rights, society organized itself according to need and not profit. And so where there was the world of settler colonialism that surrounded us, there was the world of indigenous justice that existed for a few brief moments of time. And in that world, instead of doing to settler society what they did to us, genociding, removing, excluding, there's a capaciousness to indigenous resistance movements that welcomes non-indigenous peoples into our struggle, because that's our primary strength. It is one of relationality, one of making kin. Beautiful, beautiful. Rebecca Solnit, in the foreword to another great book that I recommend, Pandemic Solidarity, Mutual Aid During the COVID-19 Crisis, points out that during times of disaster, we tend to see two trends: the failure of institutionalized authority to care for people and the demonization of ordinary people who do. In contrast to these two trends, she saw a few other things. People knew how to self-organize, and that horizontal democratic means were what worked over and over in place after place. Another was the joy they seemed to find, even in the worst of circumstances, in finding the agency to act and the communion of acting together, and finding a connection that can be hard to find and feel and have recognized for others, by others. That's the end of her quote. There is joy in this work, and that joy speaks to who we really are and what we really want. And those are things that advertising, mainstream media, entertainment, private art as such as the purely personal novel, conventional cynicism profit from. What all these projects around the world tell us is that they can be the foundation for bigger projects, both practically and as the imaginative and ideological basis for something new, based on generosity, abundance, horizontality, inclusion. We must stay awake and remember who we were at the worst of times. We must also remember this capaciousness, generosity, and joy. In a recent interview with Frances Fox Piven in The Guardian, she warned us, as the title of the interview reveals, that the US can still become a fascist country. Among her points of concern are the crazy mobs, MAGA, elite obliviousness to political stability, and a grab it and go mentality. She contends that thinking people do not pay enough attention to the human lust for cruelty, which Trump well performs and brings to the fore. Mutual aid, I believe, is an antidote to the horror of cruelty, and one that we can practice in our communities. In mutual aid, building solidarity during this crisis, Dean Spade distills 3 key elements of mutual aid. 1, mutual aid projects work to meet survival needs and build a shared understanding about why people do and do not have what they need. 2, mutual aid projects mobilize people, expand solidarity, and build movements. 3, mutual aid projects are participatory, solving problems through collective action rather than waiting for saviors. In his discussion of the first key element of mutual aid, Spade points to the Black Panthers survival programs of the 1960s and 70s. These programs included free breakfast, free ambulances, and as a side note, I mentioned Umar Haque. He writes a lot about what's going on in Britain right now. And do you know that 25% of their ambulance calls are not met? And that people just die because nobody comes to help them. 25%. They are really, really in an awful situation right now. But back to the Black Panthers. Free rides for the elderly, free medical clinics, and schools that provide a liberation curriculum for children. They created spaces that welcome people, provided for their material needs, and collectively analyzed their social conditions. In 1969, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover authored a memo which was sent to all the field offices, stating the following, quote, "The Breakfast for Children program represents the best and most influential going for the Black Panther Party, and as such is potentially the greatest threat by authorities to neutralize the Black Panther Party and destroy what it stands for," end of quote. Just before the Chicago Survival Program was to open, police broke into a church that was hosting the program and urinated all over the food. The Young Lords also ran similar programs to the Black Panther Party, and their vision for decolonizing Puerto Rico and liberating Puerto Ricans from racism, poverty, and police terror in the US was put into practice by mutual aid. Mariama Kaba and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez articulate the steps that are necessary to build a mutual aid network in their Mutual Aid 101 toolkit. The bottom line, they claim, is that we are bound up in one another and that our survival and flourishing requires cooperation, not competition. In a graphic illustration, they map out how we might start a mutual aid network. We could even start tonight. 1, build a pod map, that is, who could help me. 2, connect with those folks. 3, find a buddy to work with. 4, identify your support zone. 5, and this is very important, start small, about 15 or 20 people. 6, establish communication channels. 7, get the conversation started. What are our needs and goals? And 8, help each other. And this, I'm sure you've heard that line, everybody wants to wage the revolution, but nobody wants to do the dishes. So yeah, we also have to do the dishes. In Marina Citrin's compelling book, Pandemic Solidarity, she, along with Collectiva Sembrar, which is an international group of writers and activists, devote 14 chapters to describing mutual aid networks from around the world. And this is really a beautiful book. And I guess sometimes we're so insulated in the US, we don't have a sense of what goes on elsewhere. But if you're looking for inspiration and you want to find that worldwide, this is a great book to read. I was particularly drawn to the power and beauty of chapter 4's discussion of voices from Taiwan. Xie Su, Jessica Chang, opens the chapter with this reflection. These are her words. In the modern colonial world, we are disciplined to be lonely. That's quite a statement. We are disciplined to be lonely. The oppressors call this loneliness individuality. They try and make us believe that the body of an ideal person is impermeable and intact. Therefore, we imagine the impermeable and the intact spaces to safely contain our bodies, and we reify such places by cutting through places with racial, gender, and national borders. We are made to believe that we can't share spaces with others. We are trained to be untrusting of our people and our loved ones. We are lonely indeed because reaching across each other's pain, death, desires, and love is difficult. But we resist. We experiment. In her chapter of Citrin's book, Chang amplifies the voices of 6 people who collectively worked to provide mutual aid during the COVID-19 pandemic. Their stories are impressive, their work creative and bold, and there's a profound sense of hope suffused in the telling of these accounts. Chang prefaces these stories by recognizing that in order to claim a space back from an oppressive design, we need to see the space as inseparable from its dwellers. We need to see the communal practices that the dwellers do based on their localized knowledge. We need to listen to their logics. Of the many things that moved me in her stories was that elders figured so prominently in them and were valued as members of the community. I contrasted that with the reality of the estimated thousands of elders who died during the pandemic when Andrew Cuomo was governor of New York, and Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick suggesting that elders should volunteer to die from COVID-19 to save the economy.
Oh.
Yeah. Chang's interview with Xin Wan Chen, a local doctor, gives a riveting account of how he, along with others, built the Xin Kang Foundation of Culture and Education to attract folks away from a culture that had degraded itself through gambling and sexual videos. When a temple in the local community became a major spiritual destination site, over 100,000 visitors left behind copious amounts of trash and ash from the firework display. The foundation mobilized volunteers to clean the streets on a weekly basis. To deal with the effects of air pollution, which, by the way, kills almost 7 million people or causes the premature death of 7 million around the world, of air pollution from nearby factories, the foundation built a shared space to deal with health and medical concerns. During the time of SARS, the foundation created a community medicine program. Chang writes, quote, "The community turn was a deep criticism on the distance medical specialist vision that views patients individualistically as if patients existed in isolation and detached from their environment. The Xin Kang community was better able to support its elders during COVID because they had established a network of care since 2005. Volunteers in the Fuyuan Association deliver meals on a daily basis and make health calls to elders. They set up supply station for elders once a month. Grandchildren of the elders created an anti-pandemic dance to help teach COVID-19 prevention communicated through dance. A mobile library provides books for elders and children, many of which are picture books that makes an allowance for illiterate elders. According to Chen, quote, "Elders are afraid of having no one to talk to. They are also afraid of being deemed as useless persons. The mutual support among elders are therefore an indispensable part of our communal care. For one thing, elders find their value in helping others. For another thing, they listen to each other's voices." He continues, "We have a sister here in her 60s cooking for elders at Song. She has severe rheumatoid arthritis and is always in pain, but she insists on cooking for others. When you take care of others, you forget your pain. This is her attitude."
Oh.
Chang ends her chapter with a riveting discussion of the need to envision spaces beyond state borders. That includes the incredibly challenging work of how to approach a relationship with China. She knows that while Taiwan did a good job in keeping COVID-19 infections and deaths relatively low, there was still the notable presence of racism and scapegoating of Chinese and Southeast Asians. In a sense, some of the Taiwanese people were following a script established by the Cold War, imperialism, and colonization. She spoke of a petition, saving lives equally and making unharmful relationalities, generated by 13 Taiwanese academics that called for an end to public discrimination. One of its demands, and I really love this, I think it's so necessary, was to revive kindness and politeness in ourselves and to get rid of violent language. While there was support for this petition, it was also met with an intense wave of criticism and disparagement from the Taiwanese community. Old patterns of thought die hard. And Chen concludes her chapter by citing Shi-Ming Wang, a researcher and co-writer of the petition, quote, "The imagined community in the dominant discourse today might not be able to help us build a people-centered imagined community in reality. The questions about borders are hard to answer. It is really necessary to think about people, but is it really necessary to think about people with the presumption of borders? We need other imaginations." Toward the end of his essay, Solidarity Networks from Turkey, in Citrin's book, Semat Özdemir writes, "We are living in a social formation and network of relations in which competition, alienation, loneliness, antagonism, relationships have been based on self-interest, accumulation, selfishness. They have valued, encouraged, and even sanctified this selfishness. Everything was there to satisfy the needs of the sacred I. Then we realized that we are quite similar to the people around us, even those we didn't dare touch. We imagine a society in which everyone supports each other with respect to her skills, professions, resources through solidarity networks. Now I imagine altruism, mutual aid, and solidarity as thinking of the ones around you, holding hands, fellowship, and genuine, real power force. Let us imagine and bring this world into being." And again, the story of Turkey was incredible too, what they were able to do. Okay, so in closing, in an article entitled Lessons from the Edge, artist Timus Keyes writes about his efforts to recreate the Book of Kells. His research into Ireland's age of saints and scholars, commencing in the 5th century with the arrival of Christianity, produced stunning works of written art, including the Book of Kells, produced at the turn of the 9th century. The book and its production were so complex and advanced that scholars even today are not sure exactly how the monks were able to accomplish it. Keyes points out that manuscripts such as the Book of Kells are held up as examples of stability and the continuity of civilization. But the lived experience of those creating these great works of art was one of cultural conflict and existential threat from multiple directions. He continues, "They were created in a context in which the very survival of the Christian Western project did not seem certain. But the artists of this period were on a pilgrimage, creating icons as portals to the divine. Whereas we question or get questioned as to what the purpose of art is when facing the apocalypse, they were confident that the function of art was to face the apocalypse. I am hopeful too that we may be confident in this time to do the work that we've been called to do, perhaps even that of mutual aid. Let us go then and do this work together with joy in our hearts." And so I wanted to end with a song. Terry just played this last night, but I was like, oh, well. That speaks to so many of the themes, especially that holding each other, holding hands with one another, and doing this work that needs to be done in this moment now.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds to change a life from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now. to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Okay, so here we all are together, back again. Okay, put it on gallery. So, okay, well, thank you so much for listening. And I don't know if you, especially for folks who are working in the mutual aid of Morristown, I think if you'd like to maybe share your experiences with us, or anyone has any comments.
As you were talking about all of that, I couldn't help but think that it's not the exact words that you were saying, but there are pockets of that all over.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Mary Gannon has her own little pocket in her own house. You know, she collects all kinds of things for the poor. And I think our churches, especially the Catholic Church and its social justice and Catholic charities, have done more for the country than almost any one group has. So I think that it has to be spread more. You know, it can't just be pockets of people, or it has to be a lot of pockets or a big pocket, but I think that it is out there.
Yes, for sure. Yes. So this is right. It's been done so beautifully for so long. I think that one of the things that got me about thinking about doing this topic now is just it's trying to answer that question by Grace Lee Boggs. What time is it on the clock of the world? And it is a time.
I'm very interested to hear that.
Yeah, it is a time of catastrophe. It really is.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking that we better, as you said so well, you know, we need to kind of spread this work. We need to create this culture because the days ahead are, I think, will be days like we have never experienced. And you know, can we get started now? And also because I resonated so much with the authors that I was citing. You know, I'm so tired of the competition, of the accumulation, of the I. Can't we do something else? Like, do we have to keep following that script? Is there nothing else that we can possibly do? I'm tired of hearing all the animals dying, about all the animals dying in the ocean. I'm tired of hearing about, Afghani children starving to death. Like, why do we allow this? We have to do something
Right.
else. We must. So yes, this is nothing new, but there's a real urgency to this work right now.
I think what's new in what you were saying, and in a lot of the authors who are writing about mutual aid, is the idea of connecting people to larger social movements.
Yes.
We've always, given sandwiches to the poor, but being in community mutually, in that it's not just givers and receivers. It's people who band together to give mutually and to connect to a larger social movement.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'd like to learn more about that. I would like to hear where that's happening, because that's one of the geniuses of capitalism. When you keep people at a survival level, that's all they can think about.
Yeah.
And they don't have the energy or the leisure to engage in connection to bigger movements.
Yeah.
So,
and also, Terry, that book on pandemic by Citrin is really good, because the author on the section on Turkey says that, and when they get good at it, these mutual aid groups, then the state, of course, tries to shut them down. They will have none of it. And so, yes, absolutely. I would really recommend that book, Pandemic Solidarity. Yeah.
thanks.
Just the title is grasping. And then when you were reading the section or talking about the Black Panthers, and nobody ever thinks of them as having some good plan.
Yeah.
That itself is, whether it's prejudice or segregation or whatever, you may say, okay, they're going to go off on their own, and that's good. It's almost like saying, if we let all the Indians go back to the reservations and we're still here and the Blacks, something has to happen within. And I agree with Marianne, a lot of, good things have been happening within the church, and we're good at giving. I mean, even look what happened with Ukraine. I mean, I went to a church in Hanover. They needed a cop to direct traffic the day after that, when people were bringing things to send, but it can't end there. It has to have some kind of change. And I love, with the kids, it's the company that you keep. Yeah. And we are called, the Sisters of Charity are called the Company of Charity. That was Vincent de Paul's model.
Yes. Yeah. And there has to be accountability. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why there's a journal called Emergence and Journeys into the Unknown, and they've been really doing some great stuff on climate change. And that's where I was reading the article about, if you're swimming in the Atlantic Ocean, you're basically swimming in the bodies of our brothers and sisters. There is an accountability there that we have to reckon with, especially within the white community. And you're immersed in it. You're right there. So yes, we do. We need that accountability. Maybe some other hands up here. I don't know the names of Roberta.
Okay.
I guess it's Roberta, and then Teresa. Yeah.
Throughout your presentation, I couldn't help but think of this morning on Channel 4, on the morning show, on the Today Show. They did a special on a school, and I don't know where the school was. It was an elementary school, and the whole school have been in solidarity with different projects. It started out as one little project, like they collected socks, but the kids were all fired up and excited about they collected 6,000 pairs of socks in this school. And then it went to Thanksgiving, and they decided we need to help people who don't have food. That's not right. And these are little kids talking about the world and the needs of their neighbors. And they, you mentioned several things like knowing how to self-organize. They were self-organizing, these little kids, how they were collecting all this, and they had categories and they were joyful. You mentioned joy in the work. They were joyful doing this. And they were reviving kindness, and they talked about how we have to be kind to others, and they may not be like us, but we can't be mean to people if they don't have what we have, and we have to help them because they're in need. And they're doing Christmas. It's been like an ongoing one thing after the other. And Hoda from the show interviewed these kids, and they spoke so beautifully about the needs of other people. And these were little tiny kids. I was like so impressed. It was really wonderful. And the other thing was that the show decided to gift the school with Cookie Monster not puppets, stuffed animals.
Mhm.
And they brought the children in and they saw all these animals, and that they were going to go for their Christmas collection. And then they brought them all to the auditorium, and each child got a gift. And they were excited about that. And it closed with two young girls coming to say with their gift, is it okay if I give my gift back to the toy collection? Like they were still thinking of others. And my sense is that this is something that the school is engendering in these little children. And hopefully as they grow and mature, those gifts and learnings and tools for others will hopefully manifest in their adult years into mutual aid kind of groups that will continue to do good in our world.
Yes.
Amen.
Right. And it's important to have that foundation. And I was kind of resonating with what, I don't know where she went.
Oh,
Okay. It's kind of resonating. Oh, there you are.
I
You
I took my hand away.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because we have a group called Welcome Home that they're at St. Peter's every Monday night, and some of us on the faculty volunteer. We take not money. Wasn't doing it tonight, obviously, but so this is a community that works with refugees in Jersey City, and they have what's called the Fun Club, and someone brought gifts for the kids, and I just saw a little girl streaking across the auditorium, and she was so excited to have that gift. And that smile, the electric, on her face was just very precious. I mean, it can't replace. So now the only thing that we have to do is we can't hope, I think that this will turn into mutual aid. We really have to be intentional. And here's where the tricky work gets in, because let's say whatever was in this girl's package, I don't know what it was, but let's say it is a stuffed animal. So then that gets in the question of where are those animals made? Probably in Haiti, where people are really enslaved for all intents and purposes. And that, gets us into a very long discussion and painful discussion about US relationship with Haiti, France's relationships with Haiti, the list goes on. So we need to, I think Liz McAllister says, she said once, we've been good long enough. Yes, we're very good. But we need to intentionally do that social movement, social transformation side of it as well. And that's, I think that's hard for us to wrap our minds around, but that will also bring us joy. It is very critical of the structures that exist, but I'm thinking, do we really want to live in the world of Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos? Is that the world we want? We want something else. But we have to work for that. We have to not, just wish for this. It has to be intentional, and it has to be the other side of this work of goodness, which is so important, and kindness. Thank you, Rupert. Thank you. Let's see, is it
Well-
Teresa? Yeah.
What a great presentation. There were really so many things that resonated with me in there. But I just want to say a couple of things. So I was actually interested in mutual aid for quite some time. I was researching it at the beginning of the pandemic
Mhm.
and saw the immediate application of it early on. We actually started our mutual aid group in February of 2020 and have helped about 3,000 families, just with a small group of volunteers with no money, we got no grants, no fundraising, like very, very minimal resources.
Mhm.
And it's a lot of it is about the relationships. So the solidarity.
You're kind of fading out a little bit. Could you maybe talk closer to the mic? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my microphone cuts out sometimes.
Okay.
But it's all about solidarity and relationships.
Yeah.
So we don't see ourselves as outsiders giving people in need things. We work with the people in need. And actually they are our organizers as
Mhm.
well. So
Yeah.
it's really horizontal relationship between
Yeah.
the communities and
Mhm.
everyone else, just helping each other and building systems of solidarity together. And though we started in regards to COVID, climate change is one of the big things that really worries me.
Yeah.
I don't have much optimism that the powers
No.
that be are going to stop it.
No, it's not going to. Yeah.
Yeah. So we really want to be able to build communities that can take care of each other
Yeah.
and, anti-capitalist, anti-white supremacy,
Right.
anti-fascist, strong,
Absolutely.
loving communities that can take care of each other. And that's what we're
Mhm.
transitioning to right now.
Mhm.
From, the peak of COVID where people needed a lot of groceries and things like that, to more education, this kind of political education, and how to work together, how to build solidarity, and how to organize in order to build those things for the long term. So we have lots of different working groups, and we're learning how to put all of those things into practice. And it's been really interesting. And this, by the way, is my co-founder Renee, who is a little late getting on, and I think she'd just like to add something.
I just wanted to add to those who were talking about how to create a culture of caring when you're working with children. Someone just told a beautiful story about a child wanting to give a toy back.
Mhm.
We really need to cultivate that culture of mutual aid very
Yes.
early on.
Yes.
And so Mutual Morris is hosting mutual aid in the classroom workshops that teach us how to incorporate mutual aid into the classroom in a way that helps the students, but also mutually helps the teacher, right? Because I'm an educator myself, we don't always want to be giving the answers to our students,
Mhm.
right? We want to instill critical thinking and a nature or an environment of caring. And mutual aid is a great way to break down those hierarchical, as you mentioned, structures. And it's, even though we call it mutual aid in the classroom, we all know here that if you're a parent, if you're an aunt or a grandmother or grandfather, you're an educator in some way, right? We're all teachers of something. So we really invite everyone to come to our mutual aid. It's called mutual aid in the classroom, but don't be afraid of the word classroom. It's just meant to remind us of education and the need for that. So we really want to invite everyone to that and learn how to, in small ways, incorporate mutual aid.
How do we get to that?
You can email. We'll give you the email. If you can email us, we can get you on our email list. Thank you for asking.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
I just shared.
Oh, okay, great.
email.
info@mutualaidmorris.com. Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I think that you would love that book by Maynard and Simpson, Rehearsals for the Living. It's not about a mutual aid per se, but so much of what they talk about, I think, is where we need to go. They're really, really good. So yeah, any of the books, they're so inspiring.
We've done book club readings of the Dean Spade book twice
Oh,
already.
yes.
Now we really love that one.
It's
But
good. And you can also get it as a PDF free download. You don't even
I
have to
have it
buy
as
it.
I have it in English and Spanish as a
Yeah.
PDF, actually. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. Thank you for welcoming us here and for this
Of
presentation.
course.
It's really
Thank you for
important.
coming.
Pat Reynolds, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, when you mentioned about where it was made, like in Haiti, Diane Moore, one of our sisters here, gave me a whole different perspective on, I'm trying to think of the nun from Pennsylvania, the Benedictine that writes so beautifully.
Chittister, Sister Joan
Chittister,
Chittister.
Joan Chittister. Apparently, I forget what the company was, but they were paying people like 25 cents an hour, or 25 cents a day, I should say, for doing the work in Haiti. And I was among those who, was against that and wrote letters and all that kind of stuff. So Diane says what happens then is they just pull out and go to another country. And she said the people were happy with 25 cents. It was 25 cents more than what they had. And I hadn't thought about it that way. I still don't think it's a right thing, but it seems sometimes like an injustice to us, which that certainly seemed to me. They were getting something and now they're getting nothing because the company moved to another country and is still paying the same amount of money to the people there for the jobs that they're doing.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
just
I've
a
heard that
different
before.
perspective that I hadn't thought. She
Yes.
has spent many years in Haiti.
Yeah.
So she
Yep.
knows, the
Mhm.
people and the needs and all of it.
That's
Right.
why sometimes they don't want unions. People are
Mhm.
fighting not to have a union because, the people will win perhaps with a union and then things go belly up and
Mhm.
crash because the companies just don't want to share the profits with
Yeah.
workers.
Right, which is why capitalism will destroy us. And I think that we really need to, that has to start coming out in our conversations and our discussions. And there needs to be the accountability for the very reasons that you said, they go from country to country looking for the lowest. They literally are destroying us. And I think we need to recognize that. And that has to be part of that transformational mobilization work that we're doing. People seem so hesitant to say that, but I don't think we really have a lot of time to play around. I think we need to start being clear about what's going on. Thank you. Yes, another, Marianne, is it? Yeah.
You're
I
muted,
think you might be
Mary.
on mute, Marianne.
Yes, that would help. Okay, I don't know if you're prepared to say anything about this, but before you made your formal presentation, you said something about the world is not changing, but going to be drastically different. Where did that come from? Like, what does that mean?
So there's a great on medium.com by Umar Haque has a piece on the end of the civilized world, for example.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
what it was. Yeah.
And he's basically talking about 3 strata of the population, that tiny top that has basically everything. And then you've got the next strata and he even calls, in some respects, the United States a failed state. Certainly England is headed in that direction. England, the people there, they're going to go under. I mean, they have like $500 in their savings account. As I mentioned, 25% of ambulance calls do not go heated. They will have power outages this winter. They have to choose between food or power. They're really in a tough situation. And then you've got the rest of the, 90% of the world that's poor. And so what we see now are kind of elites just cashing out, just as Francis Fox Pippin said, get it and run. And just no caring about anyone else, in part because they're so insular, in their world, they don't see really anybody else. And then those at the middle are going to become, they're not going to go up, they're going to be going down. So you've got this massive inequality, but then you've also got the devastation of climate change, and you have countries which will become inhabitable. And it's not like people are welcomed when they're leaving. People will be living in camps, if not killed outright. And so it's and you've also got the loss of diversity. People kind of skip that. They just talk about, global temperatures, but the loss of biodiversity. You've got tipping points that make certain things irreversible, like the melting of the glaciers. So there are more pandemics to come. I mean, one of the points that he makes is, this pandemic brought the world to its knees. I mean, then that's just one pandemic. Can you imagine all of that magnified? So I'd really take a look at that article. It's when you look at some of the statistics, they are so sobering. And also it's the point that Frances Fox Piven made. I do think that there is as she's put it, a lust for cruelty and sadism. I mean, that's what Trump is all about, right? And I think we need to develop antidotes to that. Part of it comes by singing, part of it comes by meditation, part of it comes in the work of mutual aid. But whatever we can do as an antidote to cruelty, to hatred, we need to do it right now, and get that part of our practice, and with young people too.
And what's the name of that article again?
Okay, let me just pull it up. I'll give it to you 1 minute. I was just reading it right before we got on.
On the chat.
Yeah, I'm not so good at that. I'm glad I could turn on the computer.
Where it says chat, click
Yeah.
that, and then you type it in.
Right. Okay, so it's on medium.com. I mean, I can type in, I guess, the name. I just don't know if I can pull up the link right now. And the title of the article is "The Beginning of the End of the World."
Oh, the world. The beginning.
Yeah, and the subtitle is "Why We Have to Take the Idea of Civilizational Collapse Seriously and What It Will Really Look Like." I mean, part of what
Who's the author?
okay, I'll write that now. His name is Umair Haque. So part of what Maynard and Simpson write in their book is that, for Indigenous and Black folk, the apocalypse, genocide is nothing new. They have been living this all the time. And so maybe they have some things to share with us and to say to us about that experience. So yeah, that's the article.
Yep.
I put the link.
Oh, great. Thank you, Terry. Thank you. A good assist there. You should also read his articles on what's going on. I didn't realize things were so bad in England.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I know. It's surprising. And the really sad thing is that he said, left, right, and center, they're blaming all of their problems on immigrants. So we're just going to be in real trouble. That's why I really wanted to speak to the urgency of this moment.
That idea is not new, because
Yeah.
I think that's half the fight about the borders.
Yes, right.
Why people want the borders closed.
Yeah.
And, when you were talking about the Indigenous communities kind of as a model, where I don't remember, I took notes and I have to go back.
Nick Estes, that was from a Democracy Now! Interview. Yeah.
Yeah. And that, how they were helping each other. What happens or can happen is that when things get so tough, like that old expression, dog eat dog, where you see people in line. I mean, I saw it even with Thanksgiving giveaways of the baskets, where it's a small thing, but, sisters were taking the food from their cousin and saying it was theirs, and, without any sense of sharing. I guess that's the word. If we all learn mutuality, I like the whole way we're looking at mutual, tonight.
Mhm.
Not just that there's the top and we're giving down and, you know, a giveaway, but mutually working together to have a better society.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. He says that, Hake, that is, that, the problem is that we're living on a dying planet.
Mhm.
And folks don't want to kind of see that.
Right.
I was struck by what Esty said in terms of we did not do to them what they did to us, right? That was really quite powerful.
Very.
We invite people in because it's who we are, relational and kin. I think we have a lot to learn from them.
Right.
hmm The other thing that is said in this book, Rehearsal for the Living. So toward the end, Leanne Simpson said, "My ancestors did not work with hope. They just did the work. And even if they survive, even if they created life for a fraction of a second, it was worth doing." And it reminded me of something that Dan Berrigan would always tell us in Kairos, that is, whatever you do, stay on the slight edge of life. Even if it's only a slight edge, stay on it. Don't
Mhm.
leave. And that's kind of, because again, we perhaps have all these huge projects in mind, bigger, better. But I think that what we have to do is stay on the side of life, even for a fraction of a second. Do it.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's kind of what Hake is also calling for. That we really need, you and I need to fight for the future of the thing we call civilization. We have to do it, even if it seems like it's going nowhere. And that's one reason why I chose that song at the end and that refrain. What a time it is to be alive. That that's right. Even in this moment, what a great time to be alive. What a time it is to be alive. And we have to lead ourselves into this work. And I think the question maybe to leave is, what are the fires that you're tending? So what is the work that you're doing at this moment?
I love listening to the song, but I equally enjoyed watching the singers.
Yes, yes,
So
Yeah.
diverse and just great. It was
yeah,
great.
yeah. Because, and that, you're right. That, thank you for noticing that. That's one reason why I chose that version of it. Because again, remember one of the themes that Rebecca Solnit was pointing out: ordinary people, and they were. It wasn't some big, concert production.
Right.
They were just there together, and very simply dressed, and created such beauty. And it really spoke to seeing ourselves as creators. We're so shy, perhaps, to sing. Maybe we think we need to have great voices or something, but I think it's just this, just start, just do that work. And I think more of our meetings should really have song. I would recommend that article in Waging Nonviolence too, about how important music is to social movements. I mean, one of the things that has always, because people affect you in ways that you don't realize. So one of the things that I think about sometimes when you're just ready to give up is Fannie Lou Hamer, right? And just all of Fannie Lou Hamer, her body, her strength, and that voice, just it's so incredible. And in the face of all that she suffered and all of the abuse that was thrown upon her, that she got up there and she kept singing. That keeps you going, it keeps you like, you're like, Fannie Lou Hamer did this, you can do it, get back to work.
Same
But-
way in the
but-
60s when we had the hoot nannies. How
Yes,
do we teach
yes.
our teenagers, they
Mhm.
fell in, Joan Baez and Peter
Mhm.
Paul and Mary
Mhm.
groups,
Mhm.
they were justice songs.
Yes, yep, that has to come back. And I think that's a very important part of the mutual aid work. I don't, there's nothing worse than being with a sad sack all the time, it's just, where's the joy?
Mhm.
Which isn't to say that what we're facing is almost unimaginably troubling. So it's not making light of it, but
No.
it is to say that, right, there's room for joy. There has to be room for joy. has to be. We don't want to be dour. We want to be joyful in our work.
Anna, what was the title of that song again?
We shall be known. The last one?
Yes.
Yeah, we shall
Yeah.
be known.
We shall be known. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, if you Google it, there's many.
That's what I'm
Multiple
gonna
versions
do.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
So can you hear me?
Yes.
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 So I just want to say that to Teresa and Renee, I think what they've done is phenomenal.
Mhm.
And I just want to learn more. And I watched them, I don't know, Facebook, what did I watch you on? Pictures, of in the park, and they're with people, and I think they had tents, and they're knitting, or it was so happy. It was wonderful. It was joyful as they mutually helped each other. I don't know how we form more of these groups or how we join these groups. I wish we had a plan. You said we need more of them, and we do.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
um,
There are a lot of guides out there. I mean, you'd be amazed at how many guides are, the one by Mariana Cabe and AOC, and AFSC has like a toolkit 101 for people. And, the step, and but I shouldn't be talking, we should have our mutual aid people here. That's the work that I want us to do at St. Peter's, bringing together social justice and community service. But why don't you guys tell us, how do people start?
Yeah, I mean, all those resources are great. We always are welcoming of new people to come with us. We are going to be launching a newsletter in January. Right now, we're mainly on social media, so we know a lot of people don't see us. But if you follow us, we're on Facebook and Instagram. But if you're interested in our newsletter as well, you can email us, and we'll make sure you get added to that list so you can see what we do. We do a lot of educational stuff. We're going to do a presentation at Drew University for their students sometime soon. We've done a lot of fun things too, like the crocheting that Mary was mentioning. We're learning arts and crafts together, so we have skills that we can share with each other. So we don't always have to buy things, because
Right.
it's hard to make them or to upcycle, or we try to be environmentally friendly in that way as well. And we try to do that at least once a month, and everyone is welcome. We always invite the public to come and join any of the things that we do. And so we build relationships with each other, and we get to know each other and have fun together. And any ideas that anyone has, we are, willing to put them into action. So if you have something that you would like to do, if you are a musician who wants to do a drum circle, for example, tell us, and we'll be happy to put something together, and we all do that and share that together. So
Where do you meet, Teresa?
in
Anywhere.
different places. So we meet on Zoom a lot, but because we're county-wide, we have tried to move it around and have meetings in different places. We meet at public libraries. We've met at people's houses in their backyards. We tried to make it as parks as accessible as possible, and without having money too. It's hard to rent places or have an office space or anything like that. So we have to make use of whatever's free. And weather permitting, we prefer to be outside, especially with COVID. We wanted to keep everyone safe, being outside in the fresh air. But now that it's winter, it'll be libraries mainly.
I just wanted to say two things in regards to what Anna was speaking about in terms of the crisis that we're in right now.
The mic kinda-
I'm sorry. In terms of the crises you were talking about with climate change and capitalism, this is our opportunity to be creative and to do something different. So we in the mutual aid world, we really see this, aside from all the horrific deaths and suffering, we really see this as an opportunity to launch a new culture and a new society. So this is a time of creativity for us. But to answer your question, Mary, you start by just knowing your neighbor and saying, how can I help you? And what do you need help with? And let's help each other. But you already know that, Mary, because you
Yeah,
do it.
yes.
Right.
So you do mutual aid already, so you don't need to worry about it. But whoever else wants to learn how to do mutual aid, it's very simple. It's about building relationships. It's not about helping people. It's about
Mhm.
building relationships. So get to know your neighbor, and you can, that's really it.
I'll just add how we actually started in the beginning was we did a lot of work in the immigrant community, the Spanish speaking immigrants mainly, and recognized that they weren't getting information about this virus. They didn't really know what was happening. And so we just set up a table outside on a sidewalk in Dover with flyers and oranges for your immune system and bars of soap. And we're giving them away to people and just talking to them. Just me and Renee outside, just talking to people. And as they talked to us, we got to know them. And then, as things developed and they started being quarantined and staying at home, we were the ones that they called for help. And we changed our work based on what their needs were, what people were telling us that they needed. It's just getting out there and talking to people is really it.
Well, it's coming out, it's a little past 7:30. So and I just want to say, Teresa and Renee, we have a lot of meeting rooms at Convent Station. So now that the weather's getting cold and a lot of parking, and we're in Morris County, so maybe we can help each other. So this has been a marvelous gathering. Thank you so much to Anna, who you can't talk to Anna without getting bibliography.
Well, all these books are just so great. Like I think
They are.
they're amazing. And the one especially about what was going on around the world, I was like, yes, it's so inspiring. Like I just thought of those little children in Taiwan. You had mentioned children coming up with a dance to teach their elders about, safe practices during COVID. Like how creative and how beautiful. Or as you were saying, it's all about relationality. So knowing that if people in your community are not able to read, so you have books with pictures, like that someone thought about that. But that only happens if you know your neighbors, if you know the community. And I only gave you a small tidbit of what's in. I mean, the examples are incredible of what people have been doing. It's good. It's good. Yeah.
So thank you. Thanks to everybody. And this is certainly a topic around which we have a lot of energy.
Yes.
We might be able to return in the future.
Yes, I think you should have our lovely mutual aid workers.
That
give
would
a
be
talk
great.
The next
That would be
one,
great.
yes. That would be so exciting.
So I've already sent out to you the schedule for next year. And maybe we can tweak it a bit and to include more in mutual aid. But just a reminder, we usually meet on the first Monday of the month, but not in January because that's still during our Christmas break. So our first meeting in the new year will be on the first Monday of February, whenever that is. But as I said, I sent it out to you, and we're going to be watching a movie that Anna wanted to use a part of tonight, Living in the Time of Dying. And
With the very hopeful title.
but it is a very hopeful
It
movie.
is. It really is. It's beautiful.
And one of the guys in there, Jen Bendel, says, you shouldn't be teaching people how to recycle. You should be teaching people how to make aspirin out of willow trees. So that's, again, the whole mutual aid idea. How are we going to learn the skills to be community to one another in the face of the catastrophic things we're facing? Again, the movie is very hopeful, even though the title is very dour. So we'll see you again in February. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to Anna and to Mutual Aid Morristown, and to all of you. Have a wonderful Christmas and holidays, and I'll see some of you
And thank
tomorrow.
you, Terry,
Tomorrow.
for organizing all this. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, and I also recorded this, so I'll send out the link to everybody as well.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Terry.
Thank
Thanks
you.
to
Good
all of you.
Good night,
night.
everybody.
Good
Thank you
night.
so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night.
Right.